Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. It is 6:31 p.m. and I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of Open Meeting Law GLC 30A, Section 20. And on March 29th, 2023, Governor Haley signed a supplemental 2023 bill allowing for remote and hybrid meetings through March 31st, 2025. I know, welcome everyone. I know that's going to be changing. So I'm not sure if they signed the bill to extend the hybrid meetings.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet if they have signed that bill yet. So
Right.
we may be in limbo for a week or so, but we'll keep tabs on it in case we do meet next week.
Right, because it may need to be in person, so we'll see.
Right.
So just in terms of a roll call of everyone that's here tonight, so we have Finance Committee members Hugh Morton, Al Lees, Zach LeBrew, Cindy Brown, Gary Carrero, and Karen Rouse. Soon, two members are presently not present. That's Duncan Law and Christopher Thrasher, but should be joining us at some point in the evening. Well, thank you, everyone. So tonight, our goal is to go through the warrant and approve as many articles as we can, including the town's budget is the goal for tonight. And Jim Hartnett's here with us. I see he just popped on. Hi, Jim.
How you doing, Karen?
Good. Jim, before we jump in, I think we're in good timing. So the goal for us tonight is to try to approve as many warrant articles, so this way we can start getting you the Finance Committee recommendations. We're still in good shape if we don't get through all of them tonight, right? We've got time to get some through to you, right? What's your date? What's your date that you might need them by?
The sooner the better, so we can get it
Yeah.
going, but the select board's gonna vote on those on April 15th. To
Okay.
close and post the warrant.
Okay, well, we'll try to get through as many tonight, and then whatever we don't, we'll have another meeting in next week and try to get through the rest of them, so. Okay, well, one of the items we wanted to talk about first is our fiscal budget. But I would like to wait for Christopher for a little bit since he we have some items we may want to discuss. It's just easier for Christopher. Maybe we can start to just look through the warrant for quickly, Jim, to help explain some of the things that might need a little explanation for us. I just went on to the town's website and downloaded the most recent version that was up there was dated March 10th, and it's version, the 10th draft. And I just emailed that to all the members too.
You did. Yep.
And I'm not sure how different it is from the last draft we had. I know no additional warrant articles were added, so the edits would be wording changes and probably filling in some more numbers.
Yeah, I don't think there were many changes. We have on the 11th draft. It may have just been the CIPC article that had the one change that was voted on last night from the
Right.
school for the generators.
Right, so I think there were a few articles that might have required just a little explanation, so I'm gonna I can share my screen if that's easier. And maybe Jim, we can just go through and we can ask
Sure.
if there's any particular
Karen, I know when you share your screen, you have a hard time seeing if anyone's raised their hand. So
right,
if you want to share your screen, that's fine, and I'll alert you or I'll call out people
great.
as needed. Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So Does everyone see the
Yep.
one?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so just going through, Article 1, that's prior year bills, right? As of right now, there's no dollars in there. But if there are any, I think that will be self-explanatory for us, Jim.
Yeah, and that one will probably pass over. Right now, we have no bills. So.
Have no bills, great.
Huh.
No bills.
Article 2, terrific. Article 2 is transferring funds from the budget from one line item to another. That's a standard one that's in there. Doesn't look like there's anything of substance of being transferred. If anybody has any questions for Jim on that. Okay, Article 3, that's another standard one that is setting the elected officials' salaries. Article 4 is the budget. Article 5 is the capital improvement. We've had presentations on that, and Jim, I know you just mentioned that last night in the select board meeting. The Macumber playground is being removed at the request of the school superintendent and put in place generators in its place, right?
That's correct. Same dollar amount.
Same dollar amount. Okay.
Jim, I do just have a question. I thought the cemetery expansion was going to be paid out of perpetual care.
So we have 200 coming out of perpetual care and 200 from the CIPC.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Okay. I was half right. Okay.
And we actually got recent estimates that are up over $900,000. So
Okay.
we're going to try and work through that. The highway department is going to do some of the work. And yeah, we may be back next year for some more.
Just a quickie, and I completely understand the shifting from the Macumber playground to the generators, and I support it. However, it is a shame that the kids in the north end of town will not get the funding for the playground that that we had anticipated. It's a comment. It's not a negative particularly. It's just
Al, it was my understanding they're going to apply to CPC next year.
and that's perfectly fine, but
Right,
it
yeah.
delays it. It
Correct.
delays it another year.
Right,
That's
right.
Okay. Moving on to item 6, this is to authorize the treasurer, so that's another standard one to do borrowings. Article 7 is the budget for the Marine Service Enterprise Fund. So if anybody has any questions for Jim, this is the perfect time to be asking them. These are, again, standard. This is a standard, the budget, so it's an article that comes in every year. Article 8 is the Water Line Enterprise Fund, the budget for that.
And the expenses on this have gone up quite a bit from last year. Just we're looking at another 50 to 60 people tying in, so we'll have to pay for the water that they use as well. That'll be reimbursed through the user fees for the people using it, but
So both the expenses and the user charges, you said, have been raised.
yes, the expenses are up, and yes, we will be looking at raising the rates as well come June.
Okay, great. Article 9 is the Town Beach Enterprise Fund. Article 10 is the Community Television Budget Fund. Article 11. So Jim, can you kind of guide us on this one? Is this a standard one?
It's a standard revolving account. They're increasing it. And I want to say from 185 to 195, which would allow them to retain $195,000 from receipts from the ambulance charges that they do for their runs. And they use this to purchase new ambulances and purchase supplies for the ambulance.
Now, that was my question, Jim, is, for what purpose? But you've answered that. Thank you.
Article 12, this is all the existing revolving accounts, so that's setting the expense limits every year.
And they're not changing.
Not changing, thank you. more down here. All right, Article 13, that's the CPC. We had Betty Slade in to give us that presentation, so that's all set. Article 14. So, Jim, maybe you can give us a little quick on this one.
Yeah, so last year or the year before, I believe the state authorized additional essentially taxes on the room occupancy tax, that if the town accepts it as a local option, we can increase that rate from 4% to 6%. And that's what this proposes. Each percentage is about $100,000 of income to the town. So if we go up from 4 to 6, we bring in about $200,000 in new revenue. And we've seen that increasing slightly each year with the short-term rentals.
And you have not included that additional amount in your budget yet, correct?
That's correct.
Jim, is a 6% rate similar to what other communities in our area are doing? Do you have any knowledge on that?
I can send you the sheet on that for the state. I don't know which communities are increasing it this year, but it'll tell which ones have already increased it. Yeah, offhand, I don't know. I did look at it when I proposed it. I just don't.
Well, and this is a tax to the consumer, so it passes through.
Right.
Anybody else have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Article 15 is to purchase a skiff using municipal waterways fund. So not using free cash. Article 16. Jim, can you give us some guidance on that one?
Yeah, so this was actually an old article, 60,900 that was put aside into FY22 to get new camera software for the assessor's office. They've decided to keep their existing software, which has been upgraded and migrated to the cloud, will be migrated to the cloud, which will be considerably less. So that this would be the balance, and they're looking to repurpose this for these software upgrades as well as the revaluation in the next couple of years.
Mm. Okay.
So it's transferring from an old article to, where is it being transferred to? I'm sorry.
So it'll be a new article, Article 16, and it'll be used for the software upgrades, which was the original purpose. But there'll be additional funds in there, and they'll be able to use that for the reval going forward. Normally, every other year or every year or so, they come in and they're looking at $40,000 roughly for their reval. So this would cover that.
I have no problem with it particularly, but shouldn't, rather than just shifting money from one bucket to another, shouldn't different departments, whether it's planning or assessors or whatever, come back and explain why they want to do what, rather than just sticking it in as a an article warrant?
Well, in the past, if we've had a question like that, we've asked that particular board to come in and explain it. This is a standard article from past years that they always have some type of software upgrade that they're looking for in an article. If you look back, I know since I've been on the FinCom, it seems every year the Board of Assessors need anywhere from 20 to 40 to 50,000 each year for software upgrades, whether it be for reval or other purposes. So it's money that they didn't use back in 21. And now they want to use it today. Or today in the new year.
And I'm fine with that, Cindy, and I don't have a problem with the amount, and everything needs upgrading, whatever. But this has been hanging on for 4 years now, I guess, by the looks of the thing. And excuse me, I just think it deserves a rationale. That's all. But you know, I'm not gonna die on this hill for that one. I just wanted to bring up the point that the shifting of money from one bucket to another, if it isn't within the same, you know, genre or whatever you want to call it, it deserves an explanation for the taxpayer. That's
Well,
all
it's
I'm
in
saying.
it's in the
It's
same
generally
department.
then the same. Yeah.
It's the same department and it's the same purpose.
I
Right, okay.
I get it. I'm just
Right.
looking for maybe a little bit more narrative, you know, behind it as to what happened, why it didn't happen, and why we need it now.
Gotcha.
That's, yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, well, we certainly could, if the committee feels they'd like the assessors to come in to explain it, we can certainly not vote on this one tonight and, ask for a presentation. If the committee,
I'm satisfied with the explanation.
I'm satisfied with it also.
Okay, that's fine. And I won't
Okay.
be here either next week or the week after for the explanation.
Okay.
So let the majority run.
Okay, good point. Thank you. All right, moving on to Article 17. So this is one that happens every few years, right? There's a debt borrowing to allow for septic system loans. Am I explaining that in a layman's term, Jim?
Yeah, there's a pot of money from the state that they loan the town, and we loan it out to property owners that are installing septic systems.
Great.
So essentially, we're borrowing from the state, and they put the septic as we need it, and it's reimbursed by the property owners. It's a pass through for us, but it's a lot of work for the treasurer.
Right,
Yes.
pass through, right. Right. Any other questions on that one? All right, Article 18 is for hazardous waste collection event, 15,000, and that would be from free cash. I think the Board of Health does that every few years, every 2 or 3 years, they try to do a hazardous waste collection. So this is
Mhm.
one upcoming.
They're doing it usually about 20 to 25,000, but they have 7,000, I believe, or 8,000 left from the last time they did this.
Right, so they're going to use the old article plus this to fund their 25,000.
That's correct.
All right, Article 19, 25,000 from the receipts reserve from the transfer station to purchase a replacement roll-off container. Any questions on that? Okay, Article 20.
Karen, can I ask you a question on that?
Yep.
It's Gary.
Hi,
I
Gary.
guess, why is that not a capital item? Seems like we do this every year, every couple of years.
Yeah, so he's looking for, technically anything 25 and over, we consider capital, right? He's looking for roll-off container, and then they're looking for some small equipment, some landscaping stuff, and
Yeah.
some minor stuff for the station itself. I
I
guess it
get-
could go either way.
Yeah, I guess it could be, right? Capital item. Okay, I'm just wondering, that's all. Sorry.
All right, anybody else?
Nope.
All right, Article 20, Jim, maybe you can help summarize that one.
I will give it a shot. My understanding was when it was approved a couple of years ago, it was specific to the collector. And this is actually performed by the treasurer, so they're changing the wording from collector to treasurer collector. As the funds are collected and paid for the tax title purposes, whether it's the attorney or whether it's insurance for the property, it's paid through the treasurer's office. So this authorizes Sue to pay it through the treasurer as well as the collector. A lot of work, and I don't think it accomplishes a whole lot. That's technically the way it's supposed to be done.
Great, thank you. Article 21, I'll let you
So
explain
there's
that one.
a revolving account right now with $25,000 that was appropriated last year. To help offset costs for tax title property, paying the attorneys, lane court fees, etc. The treasurer wants to bump it up to 75,000. We're not funding the 75,000 this year, but the maximum amount for the account would be 75.
Okay. Terrific. Article 22.
So this is a piece of property off of Briggs Road that's landlocked. And the property owners essentially no longer want to pay taxes and they want to get rid of it. We could go through the tax title process, which would be more expensive than just accepting the property through this process.
Do you know what the annual taxes are on the piece of land?
Might be able to tell you in a minute. And then Gary has his hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Just a quick question, Karen, or Jim. Have we vetted this property through conservation and health? Is there any issues with this property before we take it?
I don't believe so, but we will do that. That's a good,
Yeah, I'd hate to buy an
A
oil,
dirty
an oil
swamp,
reserve.
right, right, that has an old tank sitting in it.
Yeah,
Gary, I think this is the authorization to do it, but it doesn't require that it be done. So as Jim was saying, before you actually take the deed, you do the checking out of the due diligence, shall we say. Is that correct?
yeah, this authorizes the select board to accept the property. We would still get a title done on it and we would still, hadn't thought about checking with Conservation Board of Health, so we will do that anyway.
yeah.
The total valuation is $250,000. It's a fairly large parcel, but it's landlocked off of Briggs Road.
Is it landlocked adjacent to property that they currently own?
Not that they own, no, they don't have access to it. The
Oh.
town of Westport owns a piece of small piece next to it.
Okay,
And Land Conservation owns a piece.
Yeah, might as well take it if people are abandoning paying taxes, even though it's theoretical, there's a revenue source, but if people aren't paying, there isn't any.
right.
Right.
All right, Article 23.
Just one more point of reference, Karen, one more point of reference on that, and I think Sue, if Sue's on, she can chime in. As you may know or may not know, the tax title rules in Massachusetts have changed. So, no longer are we able to take a property and sell it and earn the equity on that property. That equity now has to be paid back to the resident, the homeowner.
Gary, in this case, that wouldn't apply because this is not being a tax taking. This is a donation, as it were, by the owner.
Right, a deed in lieu of foreclosure, right.
Okay,
Right.
not for tax taking purposes.
Correct.
Oh, okay, all right, all right. Thanks for the clarification. I want to make sure.
So the 83,500 here was part of a warrant article that authorized borrowing. I believe there were two authorizations. I think the second one was for $1.5 million. This is the balance that was left. That was never borrowed. It was authorized to pay for open space and recreation. And the Open Space Agricultural Commission feels that it's not enough to incentivize the purchase of any other properties. So they just assume not borrow the money. So this takes it off the books.
Mhm.
All right, Article 24 is a bylaw request to add the following language for conflict of interest. We talked about that with our moderator before.
Mhm.
All right, Article 25.
So this is right now we have a bylaw that has a residency requirement for police, fire, and highway department. The police and fire has been overridden with the contracts that we have with the unions, so it doesn't apply to police and fire anymore. But the highway department, that has not been done, and it technically applies to the whole department. So anybody that's hired in that department, if they're not a town resident right now, they wouldn't be able to be hired. We're finding it difficult to just find qualified people with CDL licenses. They're looking at possibly hiring an engineer. This would open up the applicant pool.
Jim, could I ask about I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead,
Go ahead.
please.
No, go ahead.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
gonna think about cemetery department.
So I don't, the cemetery, right now, it was just the highway, police and fire. That will include, so cemetery does not have to be there's no residency requirement for cemetery.
There is no, okay,
There is
that
no-
was my point, to get into compliance with it, with everybody, to be able to kind of scatter out a little bit beyond the confines of Westport. Okay.
Yeah,
Jim,
It's-
is there any department left that has a residency, or does it eliminate is there anyone left now?
really now it's just the highway department, so this
Just
will
highway.
eliminate that. You know, we
Okay.
still kept the preference in there. But not required.
Right, okay. Article 26 is the short-term rental permit regulation. So this is an update from the warrant article that was presented last year.
Jim, how is this different? I mean, from what I understand, this is a pretty watered down version, correct?
Yes.
It puts all of the responsibility on the select board, more or less, for enforcement.
Yeah, so last year, through the zoning bylaw that they were proposing for short-term rentals, they had requirements or conditions on it. You know, you had to rent at a minimum of 5 days in a row or 6 days in a row. They had some parking requirements and some other minor requirements as well. That was shot down. This one just essentially, it just permits short-term rentals in town, and they also have a bylaw change, a general bylaw change that requires them to get a permit with the select board. I question how much authority the select board will have as far as enforcement.
So you can't, will the select board have the ability to revoke the permit?
They could revoke the permit that's issued by the select board, but it's still permitted by zoning.
Ah, okay.
You know,
So, yeah, what benefit is there, right?
there'll be some enforcement power, I think, with the select board, but I think it's going to be limited. You know, we run into that problem with East Beach Association and the permits that we have down there. We have specific requirements. Those requirements have been challenged a couple of times, and we've been kind of told that, you know, we have limited enforcement power. But what it allow us to do, it will allow us to track the number of short-term rentals and where they're located. And
If someone applies for the permit,
if they apply for the permit.
right?
And it'll
Okay,
be more work for the office as well. So
right.
I'll put that plug in
Right.
there.
So
Is
that's
there a
Article
fee-
26 and 7, right? Is those two are together?
Yes, one's a short-term rental zoning bylaw and one's a
Those
general
are-
bylaw.
So
Okay.
is there a fee attached to the certificate?
You know, I'm not sure. We could set a fee. The select board could set a fee if it's
Set
not
a
in
fee.
there. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right. Article 28 is a zoning bylaw, and typically our finance committee doesn't make recommendations on zoning bylaws because they don't have a direct financial impact, but so
That's the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. And they've tried to make it consistent with the state law. The state just came out and said you're required to have accessory dwellings permitted. And this
Right.
kind of mirrors what the state has said.
terrific. All right. Article 29 looks like it's a personnel bylaw
Yeah,
So this is,
schedule change.
yes.
Schedule A change. Again, not a financial one. Article 30. So this is a road, this is by petition. And can you give us a little information on this, Jim? Do you know, is the select
so-
board going to approve this road or?
So we had a public hearing last night on this one and the next one, Maya Way. The select board voted to accept the layouts and let it go to town meeting for vote.
Okay.
The planning board had a couple of issues with some grass, some loam and seeding, and as-built plans. The as-built plans have been submitted. The contractor said that the loam and seeding will be done by town meeting.
Okay, that's terrific.
And that's for both of those.
So then the next three articles would be the remainder of any free cash to go run into the stabilization fund, the capital stabilization fund, and then the special education special revenue account. So those after we finalize the budget, and I think you've got recommendations, Jim, on your schedule that we have for it. So for funding for each one.
Yep.
Okay, so that takes care of all the articles. I think this was a much easier year for this. So we won't bore you with our, it looks like Duncan Law at 7:02 just joined us. Hi, Duncan.
Greetings, everyone.
Hi, Duncan.
All right, so great. So we will move on to the budget. So I am going to close that out. And I think I'm going to share the budget. Just a second.
Duncan, can you mute your, Duncan, can you mute your, there you go. Thank you. There we go.
All right, can you see the budget?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just, has Christopher Thrasher arrived or is he not present still?
No.
Oh, he just joined. Christopher
Oh, there we
Thrasher
go.
just joined at 7:03. Look at that.
Just in time.
You call it and they will come, right?
I shudder to think of what I've missed, but hello, everyone.
Well, we went through all the warrant articles first. So Jim gave us an explanation on all of those. So we were just getting to the budget and I said, is Christopher arrived yet? And lo and behold, you popped in.
Yes, indeed. And my apologies because I unfortunately am at a public meeting in another town for a work-related thing that I have to go back to here in a few, but I can certainly speak to some of the things that I spoke or that I had in that alternative proposal. And I will say I did have a chance to talk to Mr. Hardnett today, and I appreciate him taking the time and certainly have a clearer perspective, I think, especially on the warrant article funds that remain. But certainly there are a couple things I would still like to discuss based on that, but I'll wait my turn.
Well, sure thing. So, so what I have up right now is the budget that was presented 2 weeks ago. Just to recap with everybody. So the select board approved the budget, their version of the budget, and sent it over to us on February 24th. And that's in the column R here. Since right after the select board approved the budget, a couple of numbers that were tentative and preliminary came through in a favorable way. So I believe the Diamond estimate came lower than what Jim had put as a placeholder in the select board budget. And then there were some additional revenue that Jim added to for local receipts and added some revenue. So with that, so there was a slight changes to the select board budget, and that's shown in column S. And again, this is what was presented to us 2 weeks ago. So slight changes to the budget from the select board budget is what's here, keeping everything whole, not making any substantial changes. So even though some additional revenue came and was split 54% to the school, 46% to the town side, Jim elected to not use those additional funds that were collected as part of the 46% share and increase any department expenses. So they kind of went into some placeholders where they are sitting in the budget being consumed. And for one in the finance committee, the reserve account, adding a little more dollars to the property insurance. We had talked about, as a committee, adding some funds to the building department and the animal control, so that got done. And that's pretty well where the dollars got used. So this is all what was presented to us 2 weeks ago, so no change.
All right.
Did I hear somebody? So I'm gonna zip back for a second. So does anyone have any questions so far?
Okay.
Gary, go ahead.
Karen, so on the return, on the adjustment of the revenues, those came from where?
So I can go back and to my screen. So Jim looked at each of the local receipts. Can you see this screen now,
Yes,
Gary?
yes.
Okay. So it was a little here, a little there, but added up to an additional $200,000. And Jim's estimate, that puts us probably at 85% of last year's actual receipts. So we're tailing on the high end of budgeting local receipts here, in my opinion.
So the 200,000 was just Jim going back and tweaking it a little bit.
Tweaking a little bit, yeah. The goal was to try to get as much revenue into this budget as possible, so that sharing the 54% split really could bring as much to the school number as possible to minimize the gap that the school has with its budget. So that was the goal and intent of that.
So what was the, I didn't see that in one of the meetings, I probably missed it, but what was the delta between us and the schools this year? Was it, for the variance, did we have a variance this year between what they requested and what?
Well, at one point it was 1.1 million before the addition of free cash. Isn't that correct?
It is.
Madam Chair, I can add a little bit of context to that. I will say that with the cuts that were made on the school side to the original proposal, for example, there was one particular expense for an additional sub-separate classroom that looked like it was actually going to save us money. After reviewing the SPED needs, we're at a point where it's actually, we're not going to meet that threshold, so we took that out. As it stands right now, based on the number that Jim has put together and the school department where we are right now, it's $116,000 and change, not including the free cash. So as of right now, it's like, I think it's 116,478,
So
maybe something like that.
what's
that includes
what's
free
the
cash.
school's number?
That
Do
is
you have
including the free cash. That is
It
including
is
the free
including
cash.
free cash.
That does
Right.
that, yes. So when I say not including free cash, meaning the gap is if you include the 400,000 in free cash, the gap is 116,000 and change.
So is your number around 23,750,000, somewhere around there?
I'll have to double check the exact number, but that sounds close.
If you went exactly, I think it's 23,771,362. You had it right.
So, Karen, the free cash that's being used there, the 400,000,
Yeah.
is that the plan that was going forward, or is this in addition to that plan that was going forward?
So just to recap, so the net revenue for fiscal 26 was 2,325,668. So when you take the school committee's last year base of 21, and this should be on the screen, can you guys
Yeah.
see?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
Like,
So, so the base was 21,999,082. When you add 54% of this number that's shared, that comes to 23,254,943. And then adding 400,000 of free cash is presently in the budget is 23,654,943.
so that 400,000 is what the plan, I know we had a plan, right? Of so much every year until 5 years, or? Did we have, wasn't there some kind of contract?
There indeed was a 5-year plan, and last year's 5-year plan, the intent last year was to have we didn't properly, we didn't meet the plan last year, but we're closer to the plan this year. So the
Oh,
plan
okay.
was to try to decrease the need of free cash 100,000 each year.
Each year to finally zero it out
Right.
after, yeah.
Oh, okay,
So we
we're
are on a
getting-
good target here. This is
Right,
a
we're-
very good target.
Okay, so we're weaning out the contribution of free cash in the budget
Right,
as we go along.
right.
Somebody's, I don't know, somebody's talking in the background. I don't know.
Might be.
No, so, okay, so next year theoretically, it should be X amount less than 400,000 and so on and so forth until year whatever. There's no more free cash being utilized for the budget.
We hope.
That's the theory and the goal, right? Easier said than done, but that would be the theory to, again, the first year that free cash was used to supplement taking non-recurring revenue source to fund a recurring operating budget creates that challenge, that creates that structural deficit, and it does not go away.
Right.
And each year, the need for free cash continued to increase, and that's put the budget in a further difficulty. So this year, I think we've been pretty lucky with the amount of net revenue that's come through. So that's really helped provide a lot more dollars than I think we've had in the last few years. So that's been helpful this year.
Yeah, and just like to thank Jim for relooking at that schedule for the revenue. My only concern is when this does run out, okay, I don't know what, in 2 more years or 3 more years? 2 more years? I guess, I don't know. Are we in year 3 of the 5-year or 2 of the 5?
I think we're in 2 of the year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as you mentioned earlier, Karen, to Gary's point, last year we not only didn't hit our goal, but we actually had to either stabilize or increase slightly. So it may be an additional year.
Added on.
Yeah, as we keep winding it down. There's two things. I'm stating the obvious. Everybody knows this. The uncertainty of the Federal Department of Education, and at the same time, the uncertainty of new or potentially new state mandates can change this, on a dime. So, it's a goal. We should happen, but we shouldn't be surprised if it goes up, hopefully down, but it shouldn't be a surprise if it's in flux.
Well, it's a goal to the extent that we have free cash available.
Right.
So it's only available to the extent that it's available there. So.
And we happen to have a pretty darn good year of free
Right.
cash
The
to
current
work
year,
with.
yeah.
The current year.
For several different reasons, but right. So Christopher had his hand up and then he had to leave. So he
So
may be.
I guess
he
the
may-
question I have
He
is.
may dial back.
I guess the question I have is, and I know it's still 3 years away, and I get it, but this is the question I had when the plan got implemented. What happens when there's no more free cash available? And
Then we deal with it.
but I know
Nothing we can do now.
I get it. I get that we deal with it, but we're going to be in the same situation that we are 2 years ago, 3 years from now.
Yeah, but Gary, talking about it now just wastes our time. We can't do
Well,
anything about
I mean,
it.
I disagree that we're wasting our time because this is the problem. We don't have planning, and this is the reason why we keep asking to fund the budget with non-reoccurring revenues. I mean, when does that ever get addressed?
Planning without resources is an interesting exercise, but it doesn't really accomplish much.
I just think it needs to. I think that we need to hear from the school committee on how this elephant in the room, if you will, gets addressed 2 years down the line, however that is. I think that conversation needs to be had. Maybe I'm the
Well, I
only
think
one that feels
we-
that way, but I mean,
I think we've had that conversation and no one has a really good answer. The cost of education and the cost of teacher salaries and everything keeps rising, and the town of Westport has limited increased revenue. And so every year it's put under this pressure. And so we've discussed it, and there's no great answer. There's no great solution. And and I don't like it either that we can't do long-term planning, but I just don't know how you do. We manage the budget every year and do the best we can to balance it each year.
Yeah.
Planning has to deal with projected reality. Wishful thinking doesn't help very much. I agree with Karen.
Karen, there was a comment from Carrie that we should probably look at and address.
Okay. Am I correct? So we're going to hold on that question because we haven't addressed. So we're still talking of so the question is regarding the alternative budget that was presented, and we have not
Okay.
started to talk about that yet. So
Right.
That's fair enough. I just wanted to
Yeah.
bring it up,
I'm going to stop sharing so this way I can see everybody a little easier. Okay.
There we go.
All right. And did someone have a hand up? Did I hear something? Hugh, go ahead.
I didn't. I was trying to look for something else. Disregard.
Oh. Okay. Cindy, go ahead.
So I just wanted to address, Gary's comment. I mean, I think that we all strive to reach, to reach that point where we aren't relying on free cash. And unfortunately, 4 or 5 years ago, when this started and it wasn't nipped in the bud at the time, it's become a highly reliant source of revenue, much to our dismay and certainly many others. But until we reach that point where there is no free cash, the schools will advocate, which is what they're supposed to do. They will advocate to maximize the amount that they can receive in their budget. And if they get the votes on town floor to supplement their budget with free cash, then that's just going to continue. That's totally out of our control as to how much money gets allocated to any department once it hits the town meeting floor. And so we've seen that happen in past town meetings where we've tried to hold the line and then it gets corrected or changed at town meeting. And we can't always control those things. We can say that we only want $100,000 and hold to it and make that our budget proposal. But if it gets changed at town meeting, we can't control that. So until that day comes where the cookie jar is empty, I think they will continue to advocate, which I guess that's what they're supposed to do. So that's, that's where we are every year, and that's where it's going to continue to be.
No, Susan.
So, so in terms of this budget, right? So, that's the budget that's been presented to us. It's a very slight moderation from the select board budget, really just incorporating, as I mentioned, the additional revenue and put it in different places. So, one of our members, Christopher Thrasher, Hugh, did you have, before I go on, did you want to?
No, I was kidding with you. Going right where I was about to go. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So one of our members on Sunday presented, sent us an alternative budget consideration for that. And I don't see, we lost Christopher. But we all received a copy of it. And many of the suggested, some of the suggested cuts to the cuts that were suggested in the budget were all departments that were town side budgets, where the 46% goes to the town and then the town administrator divvies up those dollars in the best way that he can. So the cuts that were suggested in this alternative budget, we're cutting all the town budgets. So by $520,000. And then what that did is it then, of course, eliminated the need for free cash because there were expense cuts in the budget. But then those dollars were suggested to be funding the school.
What is your
So in
priority?
essence, the 520,000 cuts come from the town and fund the school. Rather than funding the school by free cash, it would be funding it through the budget itself. And so when you do that calculation of the split, instead of it being a 54% split to the school for the new revenue, it comes to a 76% split for the school. So that's the budget that was presented. I wish Christopher was here so he can speak to some of those items. Go ahead,
You said
Hugh.
you have to leave, Karen.
Two questions. I was under the impression, but I thought Jim might be advising us, that Chris was finding money in all the warrant articles that haven't been expended. I have nothing against going through the cushions, as it were, of the town, but obviously that requires a review of each of the warrant articles and whether the funds are going to be used or whether they're left over and could be swept. So I defer on that. I cannot see a reason to support a budget with 76% for the schools and leaving the rest of the town in poverty.
Thank you, Hugh. And just to comment on the, using, I think it's important to look at the warrant articles and, do the research to determine whether they should be turned back or whether they can be utilized. The concern is if you use a warrant article, which again is one-time funds, if you take dollars from a warrant article and then go to use it in the budget, you're doing the same thing like free cash. You're funding
Exactly.
a budget with one-time expenses.
Exactly.
So you haven't solved anything. You're just you're removing free cash, but you're using warrant articles. It's the same exact issue. It's the same exact problem.
Exactly.
I think Jim wanted to respond.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, just quickly on the old warrant articles. We have been going through those, probably not as quickly as I'd like. But we've gone through those. There is some additional funding in there that will not be expended on those warrant articles, but the majority of them are earmarked for specific projects that are either being delayed or partly finished or haven't started yet. But for the most part, the majority of the money there is accounted for, but there are some that we need to close out. And regardless of what happens tonight or where we are with the budget, we're going to look to close those out before the end of the fiscal year so they roll into free cash next year.
Jim, refresh my memory on the process for that. So if there is an article that does not have to be voted at town meeting to be returned?
Rescinded, it does, yes.
Yeah. So you don't have an article in the warrant currently to rescind some of those articles you're referring to. So they won't go to free cash for 2 years, right?
I checked with Nicole today and I'm going to let her respond to that.
Okay, go ahead, Nicole. You're on mute. There
Okay,
you go.
so we don't actually have to rescind the articles. At the end of the fiscal year, we can retain them or return them. If we return them, we just don't roll them over and they'll fall into free cash next year. We don't actually have to rescind the articles. However, if we want to repurpose the articles for something else, if you want to take a group of articles and use them for similar projects, that would have to be a town meeting vote. But at this point, to close them out for this fiscal year, they would be free cash to be used in 27.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's the explanation I was looking for. Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Gary, go ahead. Did you have anything else, Jim, or we'll keep taking questions?
The only other thing, I don't want to speak for Chris, but we had a lengthy conversation this afternoon, kind of reviewing his budget. And I think the end game was the school department was trying to get an additional $100,000 for their budget. And they were looking for ways to do that. That was one. And the other one was they were trying to increase their base by reducing the amount of free cash that is earmarked towards their budget each year. Those were the two main things that they were looking for.
Semantics. Gary has his hand up, Karen, for a while.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, so I guess it'd be, so that would be an additional 25, almost let's say 25% in revenue that we would give to the schools. Articles being one, what are the other line items that were proposed? I mean, how much is coming out of articles? I mean, this seems like $100,000. Yeah, it's not a lot of money, but in a $50 million.
Some was coming out, some was cutting some expenses. For example, the new position, the town engineer, it was suggested it to be part-time instead of full-time. So that was 60,000 of a cut to the highway department.
One was the town accountant, the software in the town accountant's office, I believe. There was also a decrease in the amount, the payment to, an additional decrease in the amount of the OPEB payment. Jim, do you remember what else was included?
Yeah, there were a few, and after talking with Chris about them, I think come to the conclusion that some of them really, most of them shouldn't be cut. But there was software for the accounting office, but that is, and he was justifying that by an old warrant article that had money for accounting, but this would be, what's in the budget is for maintenance and licensing. So that's a yearly reoccurring cost. Information technology, there was $50,000 for the med tech that we consult with for our help desk. But beyond the help desk, they also support the town's IT department, right? So if for some reason Keith wasn't available this week, next month, or doesn't come back to work next week, we have backups, and it's not just town hall, it's the annex, police department, fire department, harbor master, council on aging. So there's quite a bit involved with the med tech. The reserve fund, they were looking to reduce by 50,000. The old high school, we have 150,000 for expenses, looking to reduce that by 150, but that's needed.
So this proposal is well over the 100,000. You're talking like almost $500,000.
It was
Yeah.
520,000,
Yeah.
yes.
Coming out of the
He was looking at that to offset the free cash. So yes, it would be $500,000 to the town side to offset free cash and provide an additional 116,000 for the schools.
So I guess the 116,000, what does that mean to them? Does that mean 2 teachers, paraprofessionals? I mean, do we know how much that, what is that? I know it's bottom line budget and they've got a big, do we know what that comes out to?
I don't know the specific details, but they originally come in about $400,000 over what was proposed to them. They've cut that back, and they've really been pushing for this additional, and it's ranged in between $70,000 and $116,000. The details on it, I don't have.
Yeah, I'd like to know what that means to the schools. If it's $115,000 off, what does that mean? I know it's a bottom line budget, but having cuts to the town side budget just delays this for another year. What happens in 27 when now they're looking for, are we going to cut the town side budget again?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
It's absolutely, Hugh, I'm going to jump in if I can for a second. Excuse me. This just really bothers me. I understand that there's unlimited needs and limited money, but I mean, at a certain point, you can only go to the trough so many times. The town side, if you will, is so decimated. I mean, and now what we're talking about in one of the Warren articles is adding 2 more roads for town acceptance. So we're already taking a highway department that is down to even below bare bones and adding more roads to deal with. I mean, enough is enough.
when it comes to, I mean, I'm really getting a little bit upset about the town's insatiable desire to want to fund the schools at the expense of all the other services that are going on. So I'll get off my rant, but I mean, it really just bothers me. It bothers the hell out of me.
Call your neighbors, call your friends, make sure people go to town meeting.
Thanks,
It's-
Al.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. If you're not done, feel free.
No.
Okay.
You don't want to hear what else I have inside of me.
All right, Hugh, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna go, and you start with something that calls for 76% of revenue to the schools. It's ridiculous and basically not worth discussing because it's so out of touch with reality that it is never gonna make any difference. So I would make a motion to improve the original budget that we reviewed earlier this evening.
Second, I'm going to second that motion, you.
Thank you. So, I think the challenge that I have with the just to talk about the alternative that was presented. So, Jim does a fantastic job of trying to take the 46% that's allocated and come up with ways to make all departments work the best they can. If for whatever reason, any member or anybody came up with a great idea that maybe we could cut a town department, I think it would be fair for Jim to then take those dollars and use it for another town department in some other fashion. So if there were cuts to be made, I think Jim would maybe hire the fire paramedic that we said is desperately needed, or add more dollars back to the highway department that was cut. So if dollars became available, I think they would be redirected in a way that would stay within the 40, using the 46%.
Yeah,
Um,
you're spot on, and I think
Yep.
Jim does a tremendous job of trying to split these revenues out the most equitable way in town. And at some point, we have to find sustainability here, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I voted no on this whole free cash thing. And I don't want to talk about it again, but I think that the more and more I don't want to say give in, but entertain this, what's next? We're going to look at the police department. We're going to look at, it could be never ending, and unfortunately there aren't enough dollars, like you said, to go around. There isn't. But I think Jim does a great job with trying to do the best we can with the revenues we bring in, the state aid that's been stagnant forever. It's on and on and on. So
Yeah.
I just can't support 75% of the revenues, and 25 going to the town. I mean, we might as well close shop,
And out of that 25% includes the health insurance and pension payments for the school department employees.
Exactly. The cooked in the books that they don't show are all of the benefits that are on the quote unquote town side of the thing. I mean, this 56% is closer to 65 to 68% already if they cooked in and factored in the entire amount of, and this has been going on for decades. This is not a new thing.
Right.
But the reality is that is the reality. And so we're already at a 70-30 split if there was proper accounting and not municipal accounting.
Right.
Great. We haven't heard from Duncan or Zach, so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, sure. I don't think we should be, playing around and getting into a 75, 25 situation. I think we ought to vote and approve the budget that we have in front of us and do that. That said, I'm going to just make everybody angry here, but we're kicking the can down the road. I realize we got to deal with this budget. We got to deal with it now, but until we can get past the override situation, we have no answers. for
Mhm.
anything going forward. We just don't.
Mhm.
No, you're not getting us mad. We all agree with that. We all really support what you just said. Absolutely. It's true. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with the first part of that, Karen, with the original budget. And then I'm just trying to think, like Cindy said, like make sure people are there to vote. As a finance committee, how can we come up with a recommendation at the town meeting to better help the public understand what this is ultimately doing to the budget and like within our jurisdiction, within the power of the finance committee?
Yeah, I mean, I've also, we do a small PowerPoint presentation, that kind of highlights the issues, but it's superficial in a sense that
Mhm.
it's impossible to have an elevator pitch of such a complicated budget, if someone hasn't followed it in detail to really grasp the complexity of everything that happens. And so that's a struggle. I'll say the first time that I went to town meeting, who knows, maybe Hugh was the chair at the time. He might have been the one presenting the budget. And I sat in the room and I looked at the budget that was printed in the warrant, and I'm looking at it for the first time. And I'm a CPA, I'm an accountant. This is my job, right? I was totally overwhelmed by the process and couldn't even begin to think how I could ask a question to understand the budget, because that wasn't the time to do it. You can't absorb a $50 million budget that's so complicated at that time. So that's the challenge. How do we educate in a way that's before town meeting?
Because people really are really not that interested until
they're
they
not that
get there to
interested.
bid it. It's really hard to get the attention of people on something that isn't imminently in front of them, that they have to decide on then. And if you present too detailed of an explanation, you lose people after the first page, right? So you can't go on to a very detailed explanation as to how all these things work, because past page one, now, you just get the glaze over your eyes. So it's that delicate balance of, we've talked about structural, a structural deficit now
Mhm.
for the last several years. That doesn't seem to really matter. I've tried to explain it in layman's terms, that it's the type of thing that you only bring home so much money every month. And do you commit yourself to more than that every month because you have a little bit in the bank? Well, what happens when that bank account money is gone? People don't seem to even get it that way. I mean, it's hard to get, because you have people with school children, and of course they want the best for their kids, but at the same time they can't afford more taxes. So it's a dilemma that every parent faces when they go there, because how can they say no to better education for their kids at the same time keeping money in their pocket, because they don't want to spend more money on taxes. It's tough stuff.
Maybe we go with that though, right? Instead of trying to break down a complicated budget in a simple way that they can understand. And, obviously education before doesn't seem to be working because everyone's more present there. Maybe instead of like a recommendation or a structural presentation of the budget, it's more of like a warning or a concern coming from us. And we can voice it in that way.
Karen has done a very good job of presenting this and that. The educational side of it, back in Buzzy, went back and tried to have a meeting for people to come to be educated. I think 3 came. And the symptom that people are not interested until they get a tax bill. They're interested at town meeting, they're interested in their particular area, etc. It is complicated. Most people are not all that financially sophisticated in the first place to deal with revenue and the accounting approaches. So it's very frustrating but that's the cards were dealt.
Right,
So
even this
before-
format, right, even this
Right.
format of having, YouTube available and having our meetings broadcast. I mean, there's actually a deliberate reason why we do the meetings to some degree the way we do, is so that people have access to the meeting, as well as having the ability to see the process along the way and hear us talk about it, just like this, that, there is no money, there's only a limited amount of money available. We don't have the override at our disposal to be able to provide additional funds. So our backs are up against the wall. Zach, Zach, you're of a profile, if you will, that you must have friends that have kids in school and whatnot. I mean, have you ever talked about any of them about the budget or how difficult things are here financially? I mean, do you get a sense that people even think about this?
Yeah, I've definitely talked to them. I wouldn't say I've gotten into specifics so much. And their kids are also much younger.
Yeah.
But I mean, at first glance, it's like they don't have time for that, right? It's really
Right.
hard to make time for the education. And I guess that's why I was trying to play the devil's advocate, but also it was almost like you had a little bit of the answer in explaining the problem and the difficulty, right? And we kind of try to go with that. And I'm just kind of bringing up the point, like I hear this, similar last year, but this year that it's getting worse. And so how as a finance committee, what could we do? What could we say that's not so much breaking down the budget, but just warning? And I mean, obviously not like a fear tactic, but I don't know, maybe we have like something set up, and I totally agree with you, Karen, your presentations are awesome. But maybe there's something a little extra that we do this year, even if it's just a few sentences of voicing our concern and trying to forecast this to the public in the moment at that meeting without a 5-year, structured forecast, budgeted forecast.
Right, more from the heart, right.
Isn't it
Right.
direct?
Before we go, 1 second, we still have Jim with us. Do we have any more questions for Jim, or do we want to let
Or
him
can he
be
go
free?
home? Does he have a home to go to, right?
I was trying to get in there for you, Jim, but the conversation was flowing, so.
I just throw this in. Years ago, my
I
right.
think you're free, Jim. And Jim's anything else, right?
Bye, Jim.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim. We appreciate everything you do.
You
Thank
can
you.
go home and have
Good
dinner
deal.
now.
This is an extreme example, but some years ago, my wife ran an old lady at the bank who didn't understand why she was overdrawn because she still had checks. That's an extreme item, but there's an awful lot of people with no financial sense. And they want what they want.
Right, it's like
Yeah.
my kids with the ATM card. They kept getting money. I was getting charged the overdraft fee, but they were still able to get the money.
A very good example.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that have financial sense, but
There's a lot to know.
being able to digest, to get this information in a digestible way is the challenge. So even those that fully are engaged in and can read financial statements and are very familiar with things, it's still a challenge to present information, especially if somebody even of that nature is looking at it for the first time. It's hard to absorb. And again, we don't have the finance, this town doesn't have a finance director or someone that would be putting time into be able to do an analysis. I've looked at other towns, and there's finance directors will put together more narratives of departments and the challenges, and we don't have the resources to do it, and that's not my job to do. I don't have the time to do that, and Jim's limited in his time too. So we're limited.
Gary has his hand up.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Gary.
Gary and Duncan. Yeah.
being involved with town meeting for so long, I think most people can conceptually understand $100,000. They can't understand a $9 million budget. So they go to the low hanging fruit. And that's why you see sometimes, they'll spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes on $100,000 topic, but will blow over a $9 million budget. So town meeting in its essence can't grasp large numbers like that. So they go with the low hanging fruit. But the other question I had was, who has proposed the 75-25? Was that one person in the school committee or the entire school committee?
Well, Christopher's not here to answer that question. I believe it was Christopher Thrasher's alternative budget. That's how he described it as he sent it to us. So he didn't describe it as a school committee suggestion. It was Christopher Thrasher's.
Okay, so the school committee has probably not even seen it, or
I can't answer to that, so I can't. You saw the same email that came through on Sunday, and I have not spoken to Christopher, as I can't speak to people unless we're in a public forum. So I have not talked to him.
okay, well, I'm ready to vote. If
Yeah.
I think if it was so important, that important, the school committee would have reached out to us in its entirety. And having a one-off, and I get Christopher's passion about the schools, and like Cindy said, they should be. But if it doesn't have the support or even the explanation from other school committee members, I'm ready to vote on the budget as presented.
Okay.
Duncan, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I would like to just make 2 points, getting back to, creating a narrative. LEs and a group of like-minded citizens, put together a website, and we did all of that, the last go around. And, I think it's pretty obvious what happens. You don't see much at town meeting, but then you go to the polls and it's 2-1 against. So there's a voting block, and they are very well organized, and they communicate. And if you follow some of the town social media accounts, they are of the belief that every single town employee is stealing from them and raising taxes. And so, I mean, again, I go back to my original point, and that's not what we're here to do tonight, but, you can't beat that. They're just, you can't see them. You don't know who they are, but they vote 2-1.
Thanks, Duncan. Al, go ahead.
Well, I would echo what Duncan said, but in addition to that, this proposal of, let's call it one member of the school committee, maybe more, maybe not, of 75-25 or 70-30. All right, I'm on camera. It's stupid. It is absolutely, in my opinion, stupid. We need to have services for all members of our community. And you only have, pardon me, you only need a service until you need it. When you need the ambulance, when you need the fire department, when you need the cemetery, go over whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, it is the most important thing in your mind. And we need to have a balance, and this group is trying to create the balance, and I love that fact, and we just need somehow to message that in a more cohesive way, because this overweight on the school side, which quite honestly, the numbers aren't much different than when I was graduated in 1972. I mean, let's deal with it. It's but we have an aging population in this town. The demographics lean heavily towards, older, inhabitants, people in the town. So let's just get some balance together and try to figure out how to explain to people what this means to have a holistic view, as I've said, I think at a previous meeting, about what it means to take all of the services and distribute out what is what we need to do to keep, the wheels running, to keep the trains running. It's gotten way out of skew.
Town, you don't have a school.
Yeah, and I think that the difficulty, even in part of the alternative budget that was proposed, it would present a massive issue next year in next year's budget. So it would be a massive change. So even if the intent was just the split change in this year, but next year you go back, there would be that massive hole on the town side. It'd be disastrous. It would be, it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And Karen, I'll just make this last point. As my late father would say, you never get the camel nose in the tent, because the next thing you know, the whole camel is in the tent.
Right.
And I think we all get the point that it is once the school committee is or the budget for the school committee is able to tweak the formula, then that becomes the baseline.
Mhm.
That becomes the norm. And the next thing you know, 2 or 3 years later, it's the next norm. And then all of a sudden, it just sucks the oxygen out of the air for everything else that goes within the town.
Mhm.
Well, Karen, you got a motion and a second.
Yep,
on the
I was just
floor.
gonna say, do we have no
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
questions?
Let's vote.
Yep. Yeah, we've got no more questions or hands up, and so we've got a motion and a second, and so, all those in favor, so the motion is to approve the budget as originally presented, that I put up
Nicole
on
had
the
a
screen
hand.
earlier.
Nicole had her hand up.
Oh,
Oh,
Nicole?
she took it down.
Oh,
Karen, you answered my question.
Okay.
I was gonna ask if it was the original budget or Christopher's budget,
No,
because
Thank you.
Christopher's
Yeah, so it's-
budget has a little issues there.
So it's the original budget that was, it's stated the fiscal
Yeah.
26 FinCom draft for discussion, updated 3/21. So that is
So-
the version.
so-
And that's
so
what was
moved.
on the screen.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so we
Yeah.
have a motion and a second, so I will do a roll call. So Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
thank you, Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Karen Rouse, aye. Did I get everybody? I got everybody, right? I didn't miss, right?
Oh,
Okay.
Christopher's not here. Okay.
I got Gary, right? Did I get Gary?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
So
Okay.
yes.
All right. So, so it is 7-0, 1 absence. Okay. So, we can go
Now
whip
what?
through the warrant articles and be done. I think we can do that pretty quickly. If we can give ourselves another half an hour, I think we're going to be in good shape.
Karen, a point of order. I think it's only 6,
Oh, was it 6?
because I don't think we have people
Susan,
who aren't here, but also a vacancy. I just wasn't sure.
Yes.
The finance committee.
6,
I see 7.
7. Duncan.
Right. 7 of us. Right.
Yep.
7 here,
More.
1 absent, so we
Okay.
have 8 members. But thank you for double checking the math, Hugh.
I just
So
wasn't
yeah,
sure.
7,
Susan
so,
is, she's not anymore?
all right, okay, so if we can go through the warrant articles, do I need to put that back on the screen or,
No,
No.
no.
Nope, I'll get it open.
okay, I am gonna get it open myself. And 1 second,
You're just going to read the title, right, Karen?
I'll read the title, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I will not read every single word, I think we're good.
Well, you're good at it. You might as well.
I didn't make that much tea with honey to do that. Okay, so I'll, Article 1. So what, 1 second. It's hard for me to do it and then I can't see everybody.
Okay, so how do you want to do it?
So we'll go through each article and then, we need a motion and a second. And then we'll open for any discussion or questions, and then we have to do a roll call vote.
Okay, so can you see your articles and see the screen? What do you want me to do?
Well, somebody just
Um,
read them.
Yeah, I'm just
Maybe
gonna,
Maybe Cindy can read them and then Karen can take the vote.
Okay, you want to do it that way?
yeah,
I'm
that's
happy to do
fine.
that. If it gets too long, we can swap.
Okay, that'd be terrific, because this way
Okay,
we'll
all
keep
right,
it
that's
going.
fine.
Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
You can do the, keep tally of the, do the roll call vote, Karen, okay?
Yeah, and we've got it recorded, so we've
Good.
got it going that way, so
All right,
it'll be a
good.
piece of cake.
Okay, so, Article 1 is past year bills, and it looks like that's going to get passed over. Article 2, so we're not going to vote on Article 1, correct?
Right.
We have nothing to
Correct.
vote on. Article 1, the interfund transfers, interdepartment transfers, in the total of $94,000. Do we have a motion?
Move to recommend.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna do the roll call in the same order, so this way, that will help our votes and know what's coming. So Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 3, these are the salaries of the elected officials totaling $156,077. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, I will do a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye. That's 7-0, 1 absent.
Article 4 is the budget, which we just voted on, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
we do not have to do that again. Article 5, appropriate transfer available some money for this is the CIPC budget, with the amended amount, the amended wording that substitutes the, Westport Elementary School generator for, Macumber Playground. It is oddly enough, just about the same amount of money. And that totals 2,171,000 with 450 coming from assessor overlay, the other items from free cash. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen Rouse, aye. 7-0, 1 absence.
Article 6, it authorizes the town treasurer to borrow from time to time, boilerplate article. Do we have a motion?
Move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen Rouse, aye. That's 7-0, 1 absence.
Article 7, this is the Marine Services Fund coming out of enterprise money and which is funded by user charges. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye. 7-0, 1 absence.
Article 8 is to $442,500 to operate the Waterline Enterprise Fund for the year beginning July 1, 2025, in the amount of $442,500. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen, Rouse, aye as well. 7-0, 1 absence.
Article 9 is also from Beach Enterprise Fund, from user charges, $162,250. Do we have a motion?
So move in favor to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 10 is the Cable TV Special Revenue Fund. These are funds that are received from the cable company, amount of $233,049. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? Definitely no discussion. We have discussionless faces. All right, I'll do a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 11 is to increase the limit for the fire department revolving fund to $195,000. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 12, the various revolving funds that are used by the departments in town. That is Article 12. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank
Any discussion? Al, Hugh, sorry, out of order.
Hugh Morton,
Hugh,
aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 13 is the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, for various projects that were discussed last week. That is Article 13. Do we have a motion?
Since I'm on that committee, that maybe somebody else should move.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I will do a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 14 is to, the town will vote to amend its local room occupancy tax to the rate of 6%. Article 14, do we have a motion? That's a 2% increase. That's a 2% increase, by the way. The current one is 4%, just so you know.
Actually, it's a 50% increase, but
Oh,
I
well, yeah,
defer.
you're right.
okay.
It is a 50%. It's 2%, but a 50% above what it currently is. I've never seen anyone not stay at some place because their room tax was too high.
Yes, I move to recommend.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? I will be happy if we could generate another $200,000 that would be in next year's operating budget. So,
Right.
I will do a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 15 is 27,000 coming from the Marine Services Municipal Waterways Fund. That's Article 15, 27,000.
I
Do we have a
move,
motion?
I move to
Second.
recommend.
Second, sorry, I jumped ahead with that.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. I'll go to a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen Rouse, aye.
Okay, Article 16, we're moving along. This is for the software, the transfer of the amount of 60,900 for the balance of funds that was raised under a prior article for the Board of Assessors for the purpose of software upgrades. Do we have a motion?
Move to recommend.
Second,
Any discussion? All right, I will roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 17, this is $500,000 for the septic loan account that's sponsored by the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust. The money actually comes from them floated through us. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
I'll second. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
We'll try and keep moving before we all fall asleep.
Right.
This is not must-see TV, I have to say.
All right.
It Remind me of years ago signing traveler's checks. After a while, you forget your name.
Yeah.
Exactly. We all need to do some jumping jacks at, Article 20 maybe. All right, so I'll do a roll call.
But
Hugh?
Karen, just one thing on this.
Oh, sure.
And not, I don't know if it makes a difference, but they're no longer called the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust. They're called the Clean Water Trust. I
Oh,
don't know if that matters. Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust has been years.
we
I
should bring that up to town council because they're the ones
Yeah.
that have reviewed the articles to see if they're.
Yeah,
compliant.
MWPAT dissolved, oh my God, maybe 6-7 years ago. They're called the Clean Water Trust now. I mean,
It does
Maybe
say
not-
or
maybe-
otherwise. Am I
what does it say? Or other?
misunderstanding that?
To determine whether the person shall be raised by borrowed from mass or otherwise. Oh, yeah, and or take any other action relative thereto. It still should reference something that doesn't exist
Yeah,
anymore. So,
Nicole would know. Well, it really it's.
yeah, so
it's
Nicole's
treasury,
here.
but-
If you could bring that up, Nicole, with Jim to have them check with the town council. Okay, great,
Okay,
thank you.
I can do that.
Did you take the vote on that, Karen?
No, because, just before, so we're gonna
Okay.
do the vote. So Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
thank you, and Karen Rouse, aye.
Okay, Article 18, $15,000 for the purpose of hazardous waste collection day, and also using money from previous article. Article 18, looking for a motion.
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? Nope, all right, roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's
Oops.
eye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 19, $25,000 from receipts reserved for the purpose of a replacement roll-off container and light-duty equipment for the transfer station. Looking for a motion.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll
I
call. Hugh,
just,
Oh,
no,
go ahead,
just,
go
not even discussion. It's just an earlier point. It might have been Gary. We may want to consider in the future that being a capital expense if it goes beyond what, I don't know what it is, 5 years or whatever it might be, as opposed to an operating expense. But I will vote aye.
Second. Oh, did we already?
All right, so deliberation is over, so I'll go to a vote now. Okay, so Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Aye.
Zach,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Gary,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye. I think I was moving too quickly on that one.
That's all right.
That's all right. Keep moving, keep moving.
Article 20 is, this is the tax title revolving account to be increased. This, let me see, I'm just voting to create a tax title collection revolving account available. I don't see a dollar amount in this.
I think it was 75,000.
I think that's the next article, maybe.
Yeah, the next one has the amount in it. I don't, this is, not sure that this is really a FinCom article. I guess it would be. This expands. Oh, this is the one where it was just before it was the collector, and it has to also include the treasurer.
Right.
Because
right,
it's actually the treasurer that does the expenditure. So this is Article 20. Not sure it's really in our purview, but we can vote on it anyway.
I move to
Wait.
recommend.
Second.
Hugh, so roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye. Thank you.
Article 21 is the to allow a limit of $75,000 for the revolving account for tax title purposes. This is not an appropriation. It's just establishing the revolving account. There's no money involved in this. It allows a limit of 75,000, but we need a motion.
Yeah, I move to recommend.
Second.
Okay.
Roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 22 is to accept a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Deed in lieu of foreclosure. Article 22, looking for a motion.
I move to recommend.
Second.
I'll do a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yeah, I'm gonna vote yes. I think Jim is gonna get back to us too with information
Yeah,
on the site.
yes. Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 23, to see if the town will vote to rescind the amount of 83,000 approved under Article 33 of the 2006 annual town meeting for the purpose of acquiring land. So, Nicole, this is where, I'm just gonna ask Nicole to clarify this. So this is where I guess I got confused because it's saying that this particular article has to be rescinded
Yes.
and not
so-
just canceled.
Right. So originally, the vote was borrowing of, I think it was like $1 million for ag open space. This is what's left, and it's been left there for like 5 years. So we're rescinding the authorized vote.
Oh, okay. So there's
That's all.
no,
There's no money, there's no
involved
nothing. It's just that we have to rescind the vote,
to vote.
It was
the
small.
remaining amount legally. Yeah.
Got you.
It was just
Now I
part of the committee dissolving as well, and that was what was left in the fund.
Right. Okay. Now,
So,
it's
so, so,
authorized-
so we're,
authorized
I'm
by
sorry,
the
I'm
issue.
sorry. Go ahead, Gary, please.
It's authorized by an issue, right, Nicole?
Correct. It's authorized and unissued,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
But so we have to formally rescind the vote so that it becomes, it comes off the DE1 and comes off all our,
right.
you know, borrowing and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so this is not physical money that is sitting
No.
in a checking
No.
account that we need to
No.
shift somewhere else or put into free cash.
Just
No,
authorization.
this is
Okay,
just an
well, fair enough.
authorization to borrow funds. That's
fair
all.
enough. Thank you. Thanks. That's all I
Okay,
need to know.
Do we have a motion?
So, move to recommend.
Second.
All right, we did the deliberation before that, so I think we're good. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen Ross, aye.
Article 24, I'm not sure that Finance Committee needs to vote on this. This is the residency requirement for the Highway Department. I don't believe that that falls under our purview. So the Finance Committee has no recommendation.
I move we make no recommendation, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Yep, second. Yep.
And we have to vote on that, right?
Do we have to vote no recommendation? Do we have to vote that we're not going to
Okay.
vote?
I think so, 'cause
We
it's-
gotta vote on everything.
So I just,
There's no quick getting out of any article. All right, Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al, aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Aye. Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Ross, aye.
All right, so that was 25. 26, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Oh, was that, did I miss 24? What was 24?
Oh, no, okay, so that, no, I messed up. So that was 24. That was inserting the following, I missed, 25 was what we just voted on, the residency requirement. 24 is so small, I missed that.
Oh
So
my God.
24 is the no
Better
elected officials shall be eligible to serve on the Finance Committee.
Oh, we
was kind of,
definitely want to vote on that one.
Right. So that's what that one. 24 is the conflict article. So
I think it's not monetary, so we make no recommendation, right?
yeah, you're right
Can you-
about that. So no recommendation.
Can you,
Correct.
can you repeat how it's worded, Cindy?
But
Sure.
we're co-sponsoring that
Yeah.
article
No,
though.
we're not. We are not. According to the warrant, it's just the select board.
Connor,
Yeah.
can't
We're
wait.
not
for
sponsoring
this
that
tomorrow.
article.
Oh,
I think it's been-
Can you repeat it?
So,
He's
Oh, it's
very
worded-
excited to
yeah,
hear his
I'll
news.
read it. Excuse me, Al. We can hear your conversation. Excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
So, you want me to read the article? So it's, Article 24, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Westport bylaws and regulations, Article 3, Finance Committee, by inserting the following new section. Section 0301.1, no elected officer shall be eligible to serve on the Finance Committee and or take any other action relative thereto, sponsored by the Select Board. If
So
you
I
are
move to make
appointed, if
No
you're-
recommendation.
yeah.
Well,
if-
I would just interject that I'm going to vote for that because I just spent a 1 hour mind-numbing thing on Facebook about the Massachusetts conflict of interest laws. So I wouldn't want to put that through anybody, for anybody else.
Yeah,
So-
I get this article doesn't have monetary value, but
Right.
I think that voting in favor of it or voting not in favor of it
Okay.
sets the tone that what we're looking for. I think that, us not making a recommendation, but us as the bringing it up, we should be.
Barry, I think you're right.
I
So
think we should support it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Recommend in favor.
Motion.
Yeah,
fine. So what's the
to
motion?
recommend.
what's the motion?
Motion to recommend.
Recommend, that's
Okay, need
Yeah,
a second.
second.
Okay,
Great, terrific. Okay, I agree with that we should be in support of. It would look odd to the public if we
Yeah.
made no recommendation on something that, yeah. All right, so Hugh,
right. Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al, with a comment that there's a lot of things that we do that are odd to the public, but I would certainly recommend that we do this.
Cindy.
did you get Zach?
This is me.
I did not get
Zach
Zach.
LeBrew, aye.
Okay,
Zach,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
And Karen Ross, aye. And my battery's going dead here, so hold on.
Okay, so so we did 25 already. So this is good. 26 is short-term rental permit regulations. There is no no monetary element to this. I don't
move we
believe
make
that.
a recommendation.
Second.
All right, no, any deliberation? No. Hugh,
Can you just
More
repeat that
time.
motion, please?
Al,
Aye.
Well, motion was to make no recommendation.
No recommendation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
so the motion was to make no recommendation. So Hugh, I think
Correct.
you said yes. Al, yes. Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy?
I.
Gary,
Cindy, I, yep.
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 27 of the, that was also short-term rental, definitions of short-term rentals. So this is also it
No
goes on and on about, definitions of, violation provisions, general requirements. The other one, established the permitting process, and then the second part, the Article 27 establishes definitions of it. So once again, it's a no recommendation motion, I would think.
I move
Second.
we make no recommendation.
Second,
I would second, yeah.
All right, roll call Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Ellie's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Duncan.
Duncan Law, aye.
Oh, Cindy, sorry, I missed one.
That's
of
all right.
ours.
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
oh, it's getting tiring. Duncan,
Well,
we already did. And
Oh, this
Karen-
is like Hollywood Squares.
Karen Rouse, aye. Well, that's the problem. I look at the screen and then I get messed up because the order I wrote down
Right.
is different. So when I look at you
You
all,
have to appreciate, I have a very small iPhone,
Yeah.
and I'm reading these warrant articles off of my phone, so I will be blind by the time we're done with
Thank you,
this.
Cindy.
The print is so small on this. Article 28,
we're
but
almost there.
we're getting near the end now. Article 28 is the accessory dwelling units, the ADUs, that these bylaws conform to the state allowance now for accessory dwelling units. I would think that this is a no recommendation article.
I move we make no recommendation.
Second,
Second,
All right, roll call Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Ellie's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye.
Okay, Article 29 is a personnel bylaw insertion of a different scheduling group for the production assistant for the Cable Advisory Committee. I don't believe, since this doesn't change salary or anything, I don't believe this is a requirement.
I move we make no recommendation.
Second.
All right, I will do a roll call.
Mhm.
Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Ellie's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen Rouse, aye.
Article 30 is the layout for Granite Post Road Extension, which I can't tell you I know where it is. I don't know where that is. But the select board did approve it last night.
So I recommend, I move we recommend in favor.
Do we do the street acceptances because it has an impact on the highway department?
That's what we done traditionally, yes.
Yeah, okay. Second,
All right, I will do a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
I'm going to abstain because I don't know enough about it. I'm not against it, but I just don't know enough about it. So
okay, fair enough.
thing. Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
And Karen Rouse, aye. So that's 6-0, 1 abstain.
Article 31 is the street layout acceptance for Maya Way, which I believe is off of Charlotte White Road.
Yep.
I looked at the map last night. Charlotte White Road, sorry.
I move to recommend, I'm recommending in favor.
Second,
All right, I will roll call Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's aye.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Duncan,
Duncan Law, aye.
Karen Rouse, aye.
Okay, so the last three, Karen, we'll wait until town meeting week to plug the numbers. We don't have the numbers for these, correct? Or
I
do
was
we?
gonna share my screen, so Jim made his recommendations on the spreadsheet, so let me try to share that up.
Only three more to go, folks. Three more. 30,
Great.
33, 34.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this was the recommendation on by the select board, and to the right, I have the finance committee, but they're all one and the same.
Mhm.
So number
The only thing
32,
that
32 is the regular stabilization fund.
Yep. So the only thing that came off, we didn't, since we did have additional revenue, the campground came off. So I'm just gonna come over to here for a second. So the way that this was proposed is, and we can always hold on this if we needed to, but the way that this was proposed, so these were all the warrant articles using free cash. We had 3,492,263 in free cash, using all the warrant articles, and 400,000 for the school, as we just voted on in the budget, 15,000 for the Board of Health.
Yep.
And then Jim's plan is to try to keep 10% to not use free cash, to carry it over. And that would, then the suggestion was for the three accounts, the stabilization account, the special education account, and the capital stabilization, to put 174,613 in each of those. But that does leave still 483,000 in free cash not used.
Good.
If we wanted to wait on this to really get Jim's, to get a further recommendation, if we should make these numbers a little larger
Right, or rounder.
or rounder, or
Oh, I was gonna hand it.
Al has his hand up,
Yeah,
Karen.
just a quick point. If my memory serves me, last year we had a pay down of the campground
That's this year.
that we postponed. And you know what I'm suggesting is that we had some money that was that was allocated, that wasn't allocated, that was shifted, and so maybe there's some money that is available in the balance of the funds to do some of the campground payments.
yeah, and that was actually added into the operating budget this year.
It was
So,
okay, all right. I missed
initially,
that
it
point.
was initially. Yeah, initially it was using free cash, but then when Jim added the extra revenue from local receipts, and then the diamond became lower, that it allowed then
Okay.
the budget itself to fund the debt payment.
Fair enough. Okay. It just clicked in my brain that
Yeah.
there was a shift at town meeting to move one bucket to another
Right.
bucket, and I just wanted to make sure that we were refunding it to get rid of that debt.
Yep. We
Okay,
can always
thank you.
hold on these last three.
We'll be meeting, well, we have to meet before what, April 5th, did he say they were going
Did he
to?
say?
Or
Or
the
15th?
15th.
Right.
15th, right.
It was the 15th.
So
Yeah,
we can
the
always
15th.
meet in 2 weeks and then finalize those.
Okay.
Karen, the playground, campground payoff, I mean, is that did we borrow for that? What is the pay? Are we paying that just to the homeowner? How is this working?
It was a regular debt.
We borrowed
non-excluded.
that, right.
And this is the last payment on it now.
So
Okay.
are we looking not to make the payment or?
It's in the operating budget.
To
Oh,
make
it's
the
in the
final
operating budget.
payoff.
Yeah.
The final payment is in the operating budget. Okay, so
Correct.
we've got 400,000 after the stabilization, the special ed and the capital. We still have 400,000.
Yes.
So the special ed, what is that being used for? I mean, obviously it's
So that was
you know,
the,
we don't know what the balance is in that.
that was the warrant. Oh, it's right on the top. Let me go back up to the top. Whoops.
I
I think
spent.
it was funded with what, 125 last year or something?
So that's the balance in the account, 55,000.
Oh, yeah, it was only 55. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, the 400,000, so the recommendation would be maybe to increase those three accounts. I mean, personally, I think that the playground that's there, you know, that thing's been around since the 1960s, I think.
Oh, and this got switched. This is now the generators.
Oh, okay. So the school,
'Cause that got
325.
switched.
Yeah, and Gary,
last night,
and it
February.
doesn't make a damn bit of difference, but that was the bicentennial, so it would be 1976. It doesn't matter. It's ancient in
No,
today's,
that's a different.
in today's
that's a
day and
different-
age.
That's a different playground. The bicentennial playground that's next to the Macumber School.
Was a skate park.
Right.
Right. But the recreation department now has funding to completely redo that. No town funds involved. So the
they do.
recreation department is doing that one separately. The playground that was in here was actually the playground at the Macumber School.
Yes.
It's used by the school kids,
The
not the
kids,
one next
right.
door.
Well,
So,
I
I
will.
mean,
No, you're absolutely right, and I will tell you that the one near where the Earl School was originally funded by a group of local people back in the early 1980s, and then generously refunded to do this.
Right.
And I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that the Earl School was before the Macumber School.
Or the playground.
The playground I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And
What was the
and
reason?
so-
What was the reason why it was taken off? Does anybody know why it was taken off the?
This,
Yeah.
because they need new generators at the
Oh.
school. The generators went at the elementary school, so they inserted one for the other because there was only so much money allocated
There's only so much.
to
Right.
CIPC, right?
Okay.
But anyway, that's just trivia. That's like sitting at the Oriental Pearl and having trivia night and saying, what year was the,
So Karen,
So
what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
I would suggest holding,
Christopher
because,
has rejoined and he has his
oh,
hand up.
Christopher, what time
yes.
did you come back in? So we can make a note for the minutes.
It was probably about 8:25. I sincerely apologize. Had one of those unavoidable conflicts with a paying client. Unfortunately, since I have a 14-month-old who eats the equivalent of a mortgage payment in berries. So I need every client I can get. But I did want to ask, were there any changes to the recommended budget as passed? Or what? I assume the budget was voted on. So I just curious if there were any changes from the last town administrator numbers that we're going through. That we were going through at the beginning of the meeting.
No changes from the original budget that was presented for approval.
But we did discuss your budget, Christopher. So you can go back and watch the replay. It was not ignored.
Oh no, I appreciate that, and I will say, as I mentioned, I did have a chance to speak with Jim at length today and get a little bit more clarity on some of the warrant articles, and I think there's a good plan going forward to clear some of that up. I I would ask, would it be possible, Chair Rouse, to just forward that, what was, approved today, tonight after the meeting, if that's at all possible?
Yep, it's the same exact thing that was forwarded to everyone on Friday, but I'd be happy to pass it along again, but it did not change. It was the same version that,
So
Yes,
that,
I'd be happy to
that
send
had
it
the
out.
latest revenue adjustments. Was that,
It-
that's correct?
it did.
Okay.
The meeting 2 weeks ago already had those numbers in there, and it's the same thing. The only thing that changed, I had a formula error, so nothing else changed.
Gotcha.
But that was
Okay.
repassed along. But I'd be
All
happy,
right, thank you.
I'll be
No,
happy
no,
to
if
send it.
there's no change, no worries. If there's no change, no
No,
worries.
it's okay. I'll be happy to change the name to final approved on March 21st, and I'll send it along to the whole committee as well.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, will we be meeting once or twice between now and the town meeting, or what's?
Well, we were just discussing, so we have the three articles that we have not voted on, and I think we're gonna hold on is, the Articles 32, 33, and 34, which are the stabilization fund, the capital stabilization fund, and the special ed fund. So we just didn't work through how much dollars to put in there and then how much free cash to leave as unallocated. So we were just discussing that we could meet in 2 weeks, because I believe the select board is finalizing the warrant on April 15th. And so we would need to vote on it to get our recommendations in. So this way they can finalize the warrant and get it ready for print. So we would not need to meet next week. Let's see. So that would put us at the 8th would be a good date. How does that work for everybody?
Okay with me?
I will note that is town election day, but I couldn't make that. I certainly want to make that work. I would just note that.
Okay.
And Karen, I will not be able to be at that particular meeting.
Okay.
Not that anybody should shift anything because of me. I'm just saying that I can't make that one.
Well, that's probably about after the select board meets, Karen, right? That's about the latest it could be because it's going to get out to print. So
Right.
we would have to meet on the 8th.
Right.
Following Tuesday is the 15th. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, all we have is we have those three articles.
Just those three articles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Be a brief meeting.
Yep.
It should be brief. Yeah. It should be brief. And, I was talking to Jim last week about the budget, and of course the concern at the state level is what their budget's going to look like if federal aid changes to the state, which could then interpret that would impact local aid, which then, so the final cherry sheet could be different than what we're anticipating, or that, there, but we won't know that until we may not know that before town meeting. So that would be the only consideration, that we would have to revisit the budget if something negative came through on the local aid side. But
I mean, we could do nothing with the free cash and have it fall out to next year. I mean,
right.
it's nothing that says that we have to spend every penny this year.
Right. And the plan, the proposal that Jim had is to try to have 10% of free cash unused. So that does fall out. But right now even with that, there's more free cash that could go into a stabilization fund, and we could split it equally, but we haven't made that determination. If we want to do it right now, we could. I
think
just,
we wait
I
and see
don't,
what
I don't
think.
personally don't have a recommendation because I haven't really thought about it that much, so I don't,
Right.
I hate to do things arbitrarily
Yeah. Yep.
and without getting Jim's thoughts on what he thinks as well.
Karen, the capital stabilization fund, is that long-term capital? What is that for?
Yep, it's for capital, it's for.
Capitalizable items, right?
Yep, right.
Capital projects that are like 5 years and plus,
All right. That's
And
what
Yep,
I know.
for equipment, yep.
and
Mhm.
larger ticket capital items?
Yes,
maybe?
Yep.
yes, yes.
Oh, Christopher came back.
Yeah, I don't see that as operational money.
No, well, it's definitely not. It's one-time revenue.
Well, it's kind of been used in a way for, operational money and as opposed to capitalization spending. So
Are you talking about the free cash or are you talking about the capital stabilization fund?
I'm talking about the whole show.
Oh.
Well, sort of the intent of the capital stabilization fund is to continue to fund it, to have a capital reserve. So, there is going to be a day that may come where free cash is far less than what we've been accustomed to. And there's going to be, needs. There's needs for to be into the operating budget to help balance. There's needs of capital needs that things need to be purchased. And so
Right.
By having at least that fund, that can help fund.
Yeah,
some-
it could offset borrowing if we have to do borrowing.
Right.
I mean, I'm with you. I think that we should probably wait. I mean, one more week is not going to really.
Right.
I think we should maybe wait
Yeah, I
to see
think
if
we
things.
can wait. We can certainly pass along all of the other recommendations and they can start working that in, then we can talk through kind of these final three.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
so
so we're done with the warrant for now.
What's that?
We're done with the warrant for now.
We're done with the
Okay.
warrant for now. Congratulations, everybody. And everybody's still awake.
Barely, I guess.
You call it that.
All right. I think we should just call it.
Call it a day. Yeah.
We can bypass the rest of the agenda and
Yeah.
hit that in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
Unless anybody have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
You have minutes? Karen?
Second.
Okay.
What's
yeah.
that, Gary?
No, there's no minutes, right?
There were minutes. We can just
Oh,
pass
okay.
over and we'll just do them later.
So we have a motion and a second
Motion.
to adjourn.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Excellent
Good
job.
night.
We don't
We've
have to
got
vote
through
on
it.
that?
All
We
right.
don't have to vote on that, right?
All right. No,
Second through aye.
well, we do have to vote
Aye.
to
Al Lees,
approve.
aye.
Karen,
Cindy
all right,
Brown,
thank
aye.
you.
Everybody,
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Al,
Good
Zach,
night.
Sid, Gary,
Good
Duncan,
night.
Karen, go. It's
Al
Christopher.
already said aye.
Aye.
Gary said
Duncan,
aye.
aye.
Duncan, yep. Cindy Brown, aye.
Karen Ross, aye. Good night, everyone.